Please join me in the spirit of prayer. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable to you, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So we're in the middle of a sermon series entitled Race, Power, and Privilege. And this week's focus question is, who is in danger? On Monday nights, a group has been gathering to watch a documentary entitled Race, The Power of an Illusion, in preparation for upcoming discussions using a program called What Lies Between Us. The documentary split into 3 one-hour sections, and this week's section focused on how the understanding of race in the United States was shaped, literally created, by powerful men and media as the country was being formed. The documentary highlighted how what people wrote determined how the world understood race, and what got written about different perceived races. So what was written about Africans was different than what was written about Native Americans. Africans were portrayed as being an entirely different species from white Europeans. The writers suggested that Africans were inherently different in ways that made them inferior and incapable of participating in society in the same way as the white European authors and their peers participated in society. Native Americans, on the other hand, were characterized as being brown white men. The emphasis in the writing was on the need to civilize their culture, but they were not characterized as being not human. Because Africans were characterized as being inherently different than white Europeans, it became easy for society to justify slavery. There was a narrative that was created saying that God made black people inferior, and hence God intended for them to be slaves. And because Native Americans' culture was so different from anything the white Europeans had experienced, the white Europeans decided that the culture needed to be transformed so it would look more European, so that Native Americans would become civilized. Of course, the unspoken motivation behind much of the rhetoric surrounding racial differences was to protect and enable white European men to either ensure their status in life or better their status in life. Who's in danger? White European men believed their status and opportunities were in danger. Perhaps the better question is, what's in danger? Having control of the power was in danger. So those with the power created systems and rationalizations and understandings of the world that protected their own power. And that motivation put everyone else without power in actual danger. Peter referenced a quote from Selena Mullen Ingalls before he read the gospel this morning, asking, "As justice seekers in our contemporary context, I wonder whom we are most like." Mullen Ingalls goes on to reflect that justice seekers don't all have the same motivations. A justice seeker can be motivated by vengeance and controlled by fear, or a justice seeker can be motivated by love and act courageously. I think that's an important point for us to consider. It's hard to say if the people who codified the United States culture around race understood the full implications of what they were doing. For my own comfort, I like to assume that they did not. But whether or not that full understanding was conscious, I think if someone had taken a moment to reflect on the situation, it would have been possible to notice that what they were doing was motivated by fear, not motivated by love. And while I would love to say that, of course, if I had been a white European male in the United States at that time, I would have recognized that something was off, I don't think I can. Because even today, I am sure there are times when my actions, in the name of love even, are motivated by fear or are crafted to ensure that I retain my power. Many of us are trying. We are learning. We are becoming more aware. We are looking for ways to make things better, to make things right. But self-preservation, power preservation, still has a hold on us. This always comes to mind for me when I think about how we consider the world. When you ask someone what's important to them, what's one of the most common answers? Family. Right? I often hear people say they would do anything for their family. Their family is the most important thing. Now, there's nothing wrong with that answer, and God calls us to a broader understanding. The work that Jesus models, the work that God is calling us to do, is courageous work. The work of our faith is not provincial, it's expansive. It requires us to have the courage to invest our finite time and resources on the good, the well-being of everyone that we encounter, not just those that we identify as family. And I think the only way we can access that courage is when we continually turn back to God's love for us. God has to be our focus. Psalm 27, the psalmist remains confident even in the face of struggle and strife because God is the focal point. Be strong, take heart, and wait for God. Be faithful. Believe in the power of God's presence and love. And when the Pharisees relay death threats to Jesus, he's not rattled. He responds, "Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord." Our world continues to challenge the hope of even the most optimistic amongst us. But during these times of unending change, may we find a way to ground ourselves in the one thing that cannot be thwarted, the love of God. And may that grounding be deep enough that we are ready and willing to reach out to our ailing sisters and brothers such that our fear no longer puts limits on God's love. Amen.